So I hope that everything is going to work out well. We will be waiting for Bella to request to be in this live video. So before you guys hop on, I would like to tell you what we are going to talk about today and who Bella is actually. So she is my Instagram friend, and we met I think more than a year ago, and we always love to talk about raw food nutrition and about emotional detox, because that's something that we both are very passionate about. And Bella, she finished, Bella finished the raw food education program from Dr. Rick and Karen Dina. So she's ahead of time with me, of me, because I'm still busy with it. And that's why I think that it would be really, really cool to have her today and to discuss some of the nutrition, related question that some of you might be interested in. So I will wait until she joins. I see her there. Hi, Bella. So you will need to hit the request button. I think it should be there. Yes. So I'll approve it. Just have to wait a little bit.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, there she is.
Wow.
Hi, so nice to see you.
It's so nice to see you.
Finally in real life.
I know. After all this time chatting together.
We have been chatting really a lot, but because we live in different time zones, it's been difficult to connect. But finally now we made it a priority and it just works.
It's so nice to see your face.
Yes, I have the same feeling. Very nice.
Aww.
Okay, Bella, listen, I was thinking about the structure of this talk, and we actually, guys, we didn't prepare anything, so I'm going to kind of let her know what's going to happen.
Okay.
It was very spontaneous, right? We kind of agreed a few days ago that we are going to do it.
Yeah.
And because you have completed the Mastering Raw Food Education program, I think it would be very nice if we could talk about the raw food education.
Yeah.
Because I think that that's something that's missing in the community. People are often sharing recipes, they are showing their nice skinny bodies, but very rarely people are talking about the real nutrition stuff. I would like to also talk about, the question whether cooked food is bad or not, because that's something that many people also wonder about, I feel. And if we have time left, I would like to also talk about emotional detox, because that's such a huge part, I find, of this journey, and we talk so much about this together.
Yeah, we do.
But I think it would be really nice, and I know that you have some questions also.
Yeah.
So whenever we cover this, we can then switch and I will answer your questions. Is that good?
Awesome. Sounds great. Yeah, I love talking about that program. I've shared with you how much I enjoyed, and I've encouraged you and anybody who wants to talk about that. I'm like a total cheerleader for that raw food program. And yeah, I want to talk to you about how you do your raw food prep with your big family. And are you the only raw foodist in the family?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely want to talk about that.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, let's start with introduction. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you, found the raw vegan lifestyle, and a little bit of how your journey has been so far.
Well, I started getting interested in raw food a little over 6 years ago. I kind of lost track at this point. It might be 7. 2020 kind of like warped my sense of time. So I'm not 100% sure how long it's been, but it's definitely been over 6 years. And I got into it because I had a health crisis. I had already been plant-based for most of my life. I went plant-based as a teenager. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, is it? To me, it's just like always been just part of who I am. And it was like a really strong belief that I held at a very young age. My mom would not let me go plant-based as young as I actually wanted to. So it's a belief that I've had since I was a kid, since I was cognizant of, what meat is actually made out of. most children are horrified when they find out. And
Yes, that's true. I
I was
agree.
so different than that. And I just kind of held on to the horror. So I eventually went plant-based as a teenager. But yeah, the raw food came on the scene. I was about 31, no, 33 or something. And I
Hmm.
had high blood pressure. And
Okay.
And everybody who knows me was shocked because I've always been a healthy eater and I've always been relatively healthy, of course. Once I did the nutrition program, I realized where some of my problems had been earlier on.
Exactly. Let me stop you here a little bit. It's
Sure.
interesting because, most of the times people think when somebody is eating plant-based,
Hmm.
automatically health is going to follow. And I actually recently had discussion about it with someone.
Yeah.
And, she was telling me, but this and this person is plant-based, but she's not healthy. And I'm
Hmm.
like, because plant-based is not like plant-based, it can be done in so many different ways. So I would like to hear from you, what was the problem with your diet back then?
Oh, well, it's interesting. Until I did the raw food, well, until I became interested in raw food. So even before I did the nutrition program, I didn't realize how little raw food I actually ate during the day.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was cooked. My favorite breakfast, I didn't do it all the time, but one of my favorite breakfasts was scrambled tofu. I would do that in the morning with some toast, and some coffee. I was a coffee drinker. And then for lunch, I would maybe do a sandwich, or I don't know, maybe leftovers from the night before. And then evening would be some rice and cooked vegetables with maybe
Oh,
some fried
I'm
tofu. Oh,
sorry, something happened here with my lighting. I'm in
I
total
think it's your,
darkness. I don't know
your
what is happening. I don't know. I'm sorry.
there you are.
Oh, yes. Okay.
It was kind of like you were in a club for a second.
I'm sorry. You know, it's a bit crazy. It's 7 p.m. and it's like really getting very dark here. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's right. We're on like totally opposite ends of the
Yeah, it's
day.
totally opposite. Yes. But
Yeah.
excuse me for interrupting you. You were
Okay.
talking. So please go on.
Oh yeah, so in the evening, I wasn't afraid of fried food at all. So I'd eat fried tofu and uh, I loved like boca sausages. You know what those are? Do you have those in the Netherlands? They're vegan sausages. It's just a break.
Okay. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Typical vegan meats that are just full of stuff that's not really
Yes.
healthy.
Very much processed.
Very
Yes.
much. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of pasta, which I don't really think pasta is the worst thing you can eat in the cooked food spectrum, but still not super ideal. So yeah, my whole day was just, um, it was just wasn't enough fresh food. So that was the
Mm-hmm.
difference. When I went raw, all of a sudden I was eating all fresh vegetables and fruits, and I could really feel a difference in my body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yes, of course. And let me ask you, did you go raw overnight, or was there like some transition phase in between?
Well, that moment I did because
You
it was
did.
it was an emergency,
Okay, okay.
And
Yes, of course, because your blood pressure was not right. And so you did it overnight. Okay, this is interesting because some people are really much worried about detox symptoms. So when you did it overnight, did you experience any?
yeah.
I'm really curious to hear.
I don't think it's appropriate to go into details, but it was like pretty intense. But it only lasted really for a week. It was only maybe even 3 or 4 days.
So nothing long term, definitely, right?
Nothing bad. It was all good. It was all positive. I think
Lot
something,
of visits to the toilet, I can imagine.
yes. And I will admit I was a little concerned about it. I remember Googling like how much is too much,
Is this
and
normal?
yes, exactly. So now, of course, it's funny when I hear people freaking out about that. I'm just like, no, you're supposed to actually eliminate throughout the day. That's actually normal, but we live in such a abnormal way of eating and health that's scary to people when they first switch over.
Yes,
So
true. And so
yeah.
you went raw and then you kept on checking your blood pressure, right? So I'm kind of curious, how long did it take before
Yes.
it got better?
I actually did not check my blood pressure for the whole 30 days because I told my doctor, she was like, you have to get on this medication like now. She was really scared for me.
Mm-hmm.
I've never really been one to listen to my doctor, so I was just like, whatever. I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna figure out another way. And I made a deal with her. I said, let me go figure something out for 30 days. Let me do my own thing for 30 days, and then I'll come back here and we'll see how the blood pressure is. And so
Mm-hmm.
I didn't check it because I didn't want the like mental, you know, the whole thing about when you have a scale in your bathroom, sometimes some people like me can get a little obsessive compulsive about it, and you're so obsessed with that number, and it
Yes.
has a detrimental effect. So I didn't check my blood pressure for 30 days, and I went to I remember I went to the Korean market where you can get a lot of produce at really cheap prices, and I just bought a ton of vegetables and fruit, and I was like hardcore for 30 days. I've never been this hardcore since then. Like not even coconut aminos or dried herbs or anything. It was
But
like,
you know, you had a valid reason to be very strict because you
yeah,
wanted to see the results, right?
absolutely. I needed to know for sure if it was going to work. And then I thought,
Mm-hmm.
well, I could, maybe I can be a little more lenient afterwards if it does. I don't know. But I was so, oh my God, I remember feeling high from the experience of going raw all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing. And so there was no way I was going to go back to normal after the 30 days were
I
up.
think that most of us have this experience, right? It feels like
Right?
awakening, like a new reality, awakening to the new reality.
Totally. Did you feel that way?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Mm. Yeah,
And
isn't it?
so what happened then? What happened after the 30 days?
Oh, so I went to the doctor and I was feeling great. So I was pretty confident it was going to be fine. And so I went in and I was so excited to get my blood pressure checked, which is so weird because I never am. I'm always so scared of what those numbers are going to be. But I was like, I get excited when this is terrible, maybe. I I kind of enjoy saying no to doctors and then proving them wrong. So I was like, she's gonna be so surprised. And so we checked my blood pressure and she was like, well, whatever you're doing, stick to it.
Wow, okay.
Numbers were normal for the first time in a while. Yeah. So I told her what I was doing. I said, oh well, I went raw and I quit coffee. And she went, oh, I'd rather take a pill than quit coffee. I was
A
like,
doctor. Yes.
what does that tell you?
Yes. It's sad actually. But
Yeah.
you know, I have the feeling that especially general practitioners, or just generally doctors, they have some sort of specific specialization,
Mm-hmm.
and sadly, nutrition is not part of their education. So I think that large part of their education is actually pharmacology. So that's
Yeah.
what they are going to suggest. It's sad, but that's the way it is. But I also want to say that oftentimes people talk very negatively about doctors, but I still like to, recognize their important role in our society because, if somebody hits me on the street, the raw
Yeah.
food is not going to fix me, that's for sure. So I
Totally.
still, so I still think that there is a role for them in our society. But I think
Yeah.
that when it comes to problems that are happening inside of our body without some, let's say, physical damage, that there was some crash or, we had some injury, then I think that food is very powerful. And even during those times when we recover from injury, food is very important for supporting the recovery. So I
Mm,
think it's very, very, very important. But
yeah.
okay, so she told you that,
Totally agree.
and then so what happened after that? You continued on raw. Did you manage to stay fully raw, or did you also have, phases when you felt like, I really want to have this, I
Yeah.
don't know, a tofu scramble, or
Oh, that tofu scramble was so good. Sorry, I have a dry pad.
no problem. I have mine here too. Cheers.
Rare. Cheers. They're nice. I hate it when that happens. Dry patch in my throat, especially when I'm trying to speak. Hold on a second. I remember that happened to me once. My first year teaching high school, like in the middle of class. I don't know where it's coming from. Anyway, it was not easy for me to stay fully raw for that 30 minutes. I'm sorry, after the 30 days,
Mm-hmm.
sorry, dry patch really threw me off.
Just take your time, we are not in a hurry. And people who need to go somewhere can watch it later if they want to. So,
I don't know, it's okay.
no problem.
It happens every now and then. I think I've been having allergies lately, so that might be it. Ooh. All right, it's passed. So after the 30 days, it was kind of hard to maintain it 100%. And so what I decided was I would go kind of like high raw, and that my goal would be to be fully raw by the time I turned 40, which gave, now I think about it, I think I was closer to 35 because I remember it was about, or 34, because it was like a 5 or 6 years. Oh my God, my mouth is so bad right now. Anyway, I thought by 40 was a smart age because I noticed that all the raw vegans post age 40 just looked amazing and had like vibrant health,
Right, because actually, if you look at those people, you see those people actually have been doing it the long term, and they have the experience and the knowledge.
And they look
right?
amazing, right?
Yes.
And they're so vibrant and
Yes, I agree.
yeah. So that's what I was thinking. And I thought, I know when I went vegan, it took me a few years to adjust. Even to go vegetarian took a few years. Um, and so I thought, well, I've been able to be plant-based all these years because I didn't rush into it the first time. And I gave myself permission to mess up and get adjusted. And so I figured I'm going to do the same thing with raw, but raw seems way more intimidating than just plant-based.
It's a big step, definitely.
Huge. I mean, it's so, even now, it's still like, it's so not mainstream, even where I live, which is actually like a pretty progressive part of the world for plant-based eating. But being raw is still very weird, None of my friends are raw here. So, yeah. But I've always been like really flexible about it. I've always tried to maintain at least 90% raw. And I've been pretty successful. There were definitely moments where I eat more cooked food than usual. But definitely by the time I was 40, I had pretty much reached the goal.
Okay, amazing. And so in which point of your journey did you find the raw food nutrition course, and why did you decide to follow that course?
I think I was probably 38 when I decided I'm like really committed to this. And I don't think I can fulfill my goal unless I get more education. Because there was just too much, like you were saying, there's a lot of messages out there about raw food. And some of them I resonate with, and then some of them I just felt like, I don't know if this really is.
It's confusing, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I needed some guidance from people with credibility and who I could trust.
Right.
Evidence-based information. Doctors Rick and Karen Dina, I think they're incredible people.
I agree.
Yeah.
I've been enjoying the course so much. It's just it's incredible. It's just so nice. Absolutely, I have no regrets. Joining. It's worth the money. Seriously, it's wonderful.
It's like a life. I feel like it's an investment in my life.
Yes, true.
What week are you in right now? What are you studying right now?
Oh, we did essential fats this week.
Oh, cool. That's a really
that was a very big one, I felt, because there is so much confusion about fats in the raw vegan movement, and these presentations were like really wonderful. But okay, let's go. We will talk about nutrition because this is very interesting. But I still wonder, so you follow the course and you finish the course, and after that, did you decide to go fully raw and always be fully raw, or did you also learn in the course that maybe some cooked foods were okay in your diet? So what was the biggest takeaway for you from that course? I'm really curious.
Yeah, that's a great question. I was quite surprised by my results afterwards. I did decide that for me, it made more sense to keep certain cooked foods in my. It was really a conflict in my mind because I kind of had this. I think I had gotten really attached to this identity, and I figured that going through the nutrition program would further that identity and make me want to be like 100% committed. But what I learned from the course is that absolutely not all cooked foods are toxic.
Mm-hmm.
It's a question of whether they're beneficial or not. Some cooked foods are absolutely toxic. Like once you reach a certain temperature, toxins start developing in the food. I learned that in the class. But when you boil or steam your food, you're not nothing toxic is being created. However, you are going to lose certain nutrients. So
Mm-hmm.
when you steam, you're going to lose some vitamins. Some minerals are going to drop into the water, and so you might not get some of the minerals either. When you boil, though, in a stew, like in a soup or something, you can still get all the minerals. You're going to lose some of the vitamins. But what I learned is that if you still want to eat some of those cooked things, just eat some raw food with it. That way you get some raw food nutrition. So I ended up going about, after the course, I decided I would be about 90% raw.
Mm-hmm.
I would include beans in my diet pretty much every day, and
Mm-hmm.
some brown rice. Actually, I learned in the course that brown rice is acidic, so I don't know if that's really an encouragement from that course. But other than that, I didn't find anything detrimental about consuming brown rice, and I still love it. So I eat it about once a week, maybe twice a week sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And if I go to a restaurant, I will order a cooked dish because it's just not worth the hassle for me to be hungry,
Okay.
or and have a skimpy salad that costs $20. But other than that, my day-to-day life, all day long, it's pretty much raw food all day. And then
Yeah, so can you share with us what your typical day of food looks like? Like, what do you eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
I have a green smoothie for breakfast, always. I have since the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I'll have another smoothie in the like noon-ish.
Mm-hmm.
I sing, and so when I do my singing practice, I'll spend about an hour and a half singing. And I find that a smoothie is a really good way to kind of like soothe the muscles here.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do a fruit smoothie, strawberries, blueberries, banana.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have a big salad for my main meal of the day. And sometimes that will be it. And maybe some fruit along the way. But if I'm still really hungry by evening, I might have a Buddha bowl of some more lettuce and some kimchi and brown rice and maybe some more vegetables and one of my dressings.
So basically 3 meals per day.
Yeah, typically. And if I'm hungry, I'll eat more. I'm not obsessed with quantities. Like
Mm-hmm.
I know some people in the raw food world are really concerned about that, but I'm not. Like some days I eat far less. Most days I don't, but some days I will eat less food. Some days I'll eat a lot of food. I'll be amazed at how much I've eaten. But then other days it's just like a normal amount of food, relatively speaking.
And what do you think, approximately how many calories do you consume per day? Because this is also, often a big concern.
Yeah, this is a big topic in the raw world, and everybody has different opinions.
Yes, true.
Uh, first of all, I'm just under 5'3", my height, and I'm about 112 pounds. And so I consume about, I guess I probably consume between 1,600 and 2,000 calories a day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Depends on the day, like I said, how much I've eaten, how much activity I've done. I know in the course I learned, that's totally fine. In fact, that's more than enough for somebody my height.
Mm-hmm.
But I try to just listen to my body. To me, it doesn't really matter. I'm a hungry person, so I'm always going to get enough food.
And before following the course,
Mhm.
before that, were you able to always listen to your body? Was it easy or was it difficult?
That's such a great question.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting because very often when people have nutrition that is not in balance, they
Mhm.
will have really hard time to get in touch with their intuition and intuitive eating. But I think once the nutrition is right, the
Mhm.
body will just never fail you. It's never going to make you overeat or, binge eat or undereat or something like this. It sort of seems to work just fine.
There's something something about eating raw food that makes you, I don't know, it feels like you said, I just feel balanced in my body. I don't have to worry about calories because when you're eating processed food, you're eating a lot of empty calories. And so I understand this fear that the mainstream world has about calories because the food that the mainstream diet is promoting is not 100% beneficial to your body. And so you have to be very careful about how much of it you consume. But when you're eating all plants, I mean, plants are perfect. They have everything they need that you need to process the whole food, the whole plants. They have the fiber, they have the water, they have raw whole foods, I mean, have the fiber and the water and all the nutrients involved. And so it's like this perfect system. So to answer your original question, I would say before raw food in general, I was not able to listen to my body. I could kind of listen to it a little bit because I had been practicing yoga for many, many years.
Mhm.
So on that sense, yes, but the nutrition part was not quite there. Once I started eating raw, I noticed the way food really made me feel. And then going to the course, having all the information about what the food is actually doing in my body,
Mhm.
yeah, it's amazing. Like, I'm so in touch with what's going on in a way that I never was before.
That's amazing. And
How you?
so
Sorry, go ahead.
I feel the same. I feel the same way. Like, before when I started raw, I was also like just like you said, I was confused about which approach was right and what to do. And I seen all these people just smashing so much fruit, and I just forced down fruit like big banana smoothies, and it worked actually very well at the beginning
Mhm.
because I had four small children. My number four was just few months. I was breastfeeding, so I was very active, so I was burning those calories. But once she grew a little bigger and she was not breastfeeding as much, my calorie requirements went down really
Uh-huh.
considerably, and suddenly I found myself full but hungry in the same time. You know that feeling, like
Yeah,
you are like eating a lot of calories, but
yeah,
you are still not satisfied.
yeah, yeah.
And I also fell prey for that, no overfat
Mhm, mhm.
movement, like just exclude overfats. We don't need them. So I was fearing fats, and my satiation was like so poor. I could like eat tons of bananas and be with this super bloated, pregnant belly,
Yeah.
and still think of food all the time. Well, I was so uncomfortable and it was crazy. And once I started to incorporate leafy green vegetables and balance the fruit sugar with the leafy greens and then appropriate amount of healthy fats, it just went away.
Yeah.
And I also noticed I started to look much better and have more
Mhm.
stable energy.
Mhm.
I actually did this experiment with blood glucose measuring, and I saw that, for me personally, how that worked, how that impacted my blood glucose level when I only ate fruit. Basically, my blood glucose in the graph would just go up,
Ah.
and then very quickly it would go down.
Huh.
But when I included the greens in
Mhm.
my smoothie, the
Mhm.
you know the blood glucose was like staying up, like when you fly with a plane. Like you go up and you stay there, and then slowly it starts to go down, and okay, then it's time to eat again. So you eat, and it again goes up, and it stabilizes there. But
Mm.
when I was only forcing down bananas, it was like this. It was glucose in range for me, but it was not. It was totally different experience. I know that some people have no problem eating really a huge amount of fruits, but for me personally, it was not sustainable long term.
I can totally relate to everything you just said. And I think that most people, when they go on a raw path and they stick with it for a while, you know, I know some people have been going for decades, and I haven't quite reached a decade yet, but going on over 6 years, you go through a lot of different experiences like you just described. I tried all the different paths that everybody online. I definitely tried the no overt fats, and for me
How
that
was that for you? I'm really curious to hear your experience.
very similar to your experience. I
Okay.
just felt hungry all the time.
No
Yet
satiation, right?
yeah, none. And I was consuming so much food and
Yes.
feeling gross all the time.
Yes, the same.
And I just didn't feel right. I kept thinking, I don't understand. So many people look so great and they sound like they're just so happy with this diet. And why isn't it working for me? And of course, when I was in the program, I would ask, Dr. Rick answered the questions quite often. And I got the impression that it's better to add some greens, you know, and you know, maybe you don't have to add nuts and seeds, but just maybe a little bit more greens and some healthy, like flax seeds at least, you know, some.
Exactly. So I find that a lot of people actually miss this point that, they go over fat free, but they don't realize that their body still needs some essential fatty acid. And if they exclude leafy green vegetables, they are just simply not getting enough. Of course, there is some fat in fruit, but I think that one has to be really, really active and really consume large quantities of fruit in order to, maintain a good balance of omega-3 fatty acids. I mean, for somebody who is, working in front of computer and doesn't burn so much calories, it will be very difficult to actually create a healthy balance in body by just eating fruit.
You need to have a little bit of greens in there.
Yes.
You can get plenty. You can throw omega-3s in just fine without any nuts and seeds, but you have to have greens in the diet. You can't just get it from fruit. You can, it's just not going to be an ideal amount, you know?
Yes, so can you tell us why greens are so beneficial? Like what do they have in them that makes them so superior? Why is important? What makes them so important?
Well, the first thing I think of is minerals. There are so many minerals in greens that, you know, fruit has some minerals too, but just not a high amount. And the greens, we need the minerals. They're very, very important to our system. And there's also the antioxidant chlorophyll. And I'm trying to think, I can't think of any. Can you think of any green fruits or raw vegetables that we would typically eat in a raw diet? Thinking avocados. I don't know. I mean, I assume they have chlorophyll because it's the green pigment.
Well, cucumber, but it's so watery that I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's just the peel.
Yeah.
So broccoli, I guess you could get chlorophyll from broccoli. Also, the omega-3s, like you just mentioned, that's very important. And greens are a fantastic way. So even if you wanted to do a nut-free, seed-free diet,
Exactly.
you included a lot of greens, you would be able to get all of your nutrients. I mean, it's actually a fantastic meal plan to just do fruits, both savory and sweet, with greens. And yeah, like that's a fantastic diet. You don't
I
have
agree.
to see. Personally, for me, I like a little more fat than a lot of the raw vegan online.
So what is the percentage of fat that you include in your diet? That's also an interesting question.
I would say probably between, it's not a lot, it's probably between 10 and 20%. I don't go overboard. If I go overboard, it is definitely a bad.
Then you notice it, right?
Yes, I agree that we should be careful with our fats, in my own personal experience. But I consume flaxseed, cashews, which cashews aren't really a healthy, I don't really think they're a super health food. I just love the texture. They make my salads more enjoyable with my dressing, you know?
Yes, but I have the feeling that as long as you are not eating them 3 times per day, it's no problem, right?
It's a very small amount. And
Exactly.
I consume, what else do I, in fat? Uh, that's about it. Every now and then I will use some olive oil. I'm not anti-oil. I just don't recognize it as a food. I don't agree that there are parts of the health world who want to claim that olive oil is this health food, which I disagree with. I don't think it's a harmful food. But for me,
In
it's
appropriate amounts, I think it's just fine.
yeah.
But again, pouring it over everything you eat 3 times a day, well, might be problematic long term. I don't know.
I wouldn't recommend that.
Exactly. And so tell me, Bella, because this is also very interesting. You know, when we talk about fat, many people will feel like they have to restrict it, that they really need to, you know, measure everything precisely and really make sure that they are standing, you know, in that fat range. Do you experience that your body tells you how much is enough, or do you feel that you have to control, otherwise you overdo it?
At this point, my body talks to me. But for a while, I felt like I had to be a little bit more precise and disciplined. I was pretty like, I was on the chronometer app for a while, you know, measuring everything every day to see if anything, just experiment what which days I got the most nutrition, eating what foods, and then monitoring how I felt. So I would use strict measures to figure. But at this point, I just trust myself. I don't really weigh myself anymore. I don't measure my calories. I'm not concerned about it because it's been such a habit for such a long time.
Exactly. And so how do you know that you had enough fat? How does your body tell you that you had enough? Please share, because I think it's interesting.
I think my skin becomes really dry. And yeah, I think that's probably the biggest clue if I haven't had enough fat. It's been a while since I deprived myself of fat, but I remember that was a problem. I remember feeling a bit off hormonally. I,
Excuse me?
I remember feeling off hormonally.
Okay.
Because I had heard that fat levels, if you don't have enough for women, can affect your hormones. And I remember paying attention to that and just feeling a little bit off, you know, uh,
Mm-hmm.
moody or, you know, not really with it, not focused enough.
Yes, right. I agree. I also experienced irritability when I was doing too low fat.
Yeah.
Like I would really feel like, you know, everything would trigger me actually very easily.
Yes.
Like the kids, when they would, you know, run around, I would be like, stop running. I can't take this. Like I felt like I was not grounded. Like, I don't know, you know, that balance was missing there. So I
Yeah.
think that including a little bit of healthy fats, and for my personal experience, once I started to balance my diet with the leafy green vegetables, an appropriate amount of fruits, an appropriate amount of fats, my body tells me that I had enough when it stops to taste good. You know,
Oh,
like I'm having my salad and I just put some avocado in there, and sometimes I would be like, oh, it can only be half avocado, but I would be craving more, you know, like everybody says half avocado, but I want more. And I was like, okay, I'm going to experiment with this. You know, I want to have a full avocado, whole avocado, I'll just put it there. And I
yeah.
would just eat it, and I wouldn't finish my whole salad, and I would be like, okay, you know, this is enough. I don't like that avocado taste anymore. And I realized I don't have to fear it, because I think when the body already, you know, when the body is receiving everything it needs, there is no reason to overdo it.
I think that you bring up a really good point when you said there's no reason to fear it. And you and I will both have a big interest in trauma and how the trauma affects your health. You know, it affects your nervous system, the way trauma is stored in the body, and how it can affect how your nervous system responds to just every little thing day to day throughout your whole life. And And the thing about becoming overly concerned about half avocado or a whole avocado, fat or no fat, how many calories am I having every day? I found myself being so stressed out by this. And at some point, probably, I think, you were the one who introduced me to Dr. Gabor Mate and somatic experiencing, which is where I learned a lot about, how trauma actually is stored in the body, how the nervous system really affects your health. And I started thinking, this this anxiety I'm getting over my diet cannot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is I'm really happy that you are naturally progressing towards this topic, because I feel it's so important. I have the feeling that all this anxiety that we have, it's somehow rooted in our early traumatic experiences, and we just carry it along until we really recognize it, and then we start to work on it. But most of the times, and that's very difficult, that we are not even aware that something like this is going on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So could you share a little bit, how your journey has been with this, uncovering these layers of traumatic experiences and dealing with it and releasing the old trauma, and how that affects your everyday life? Because actually I have the feeling that this is a process that it's ongoing. It's like I never feel like I'm done with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah. Wow, I'm so glad that this conversation went in this direction. I'm so glad you asked me that question, because that has been a huge part of my process. I really feel like the experience I went through in shifting to raw food, I feel like I had to clean my body out physically in order to get to this deeper issue,
The
which
same here.
is the
I can
trauma.
relate very much. Yes.
I know you can. I mean, your posts about Gabor Mate and trauma and somatic experiencing were so helpful to me when I hadn't quite jumped over into that category. I was kind of reading some books here and there. Throughout my whole adult life, I've worked on dealing with my trauma from my childhood, and it's been a 2-decade process. And when I learned about somatic experiencing and trauma in the body, I realized, oh, I've got to work on that. I'm never going to be completely healthy until I deal with the trauma that's still in me and still informing all the decisions I make throughout the day. But I feel like the raw food cleaned out my body where I could start feeling my body. And so I was able to start noticing where the trauma is stored. And so I started doing a lot of things. And we could talk about that if you want, the processes I went through. But I definitely did a lot of body work and acupuncture and something called emotional freedom technique. It's the tapping stuff. You've probably seen it online.
Not really.
Oh, it's really interesting. It's very, very simple. It almost seems so simple that there's no way it could be effective. But it's just a process of tapping on certain points on your body.
Okay.
And affirming certain things related to whatever it is that you feel is stuck in your body.
Mm-hmm. And is it that you tap yourself, or is it somebody else doing this for you?
You do it yourself. So
You
the
do
way
it yourself. Mm-hmm.
I actually did 6 weeks of acupuncture and EFT tapping with a practitioner. And
Mm-hmm.
some sessions we would do just acupuncture. And the whole point was to rewire my nervous system. Because, and I realize I'm being a bit vague here, but I have some really severe trauma from my childhood that has to do with some really intense abuse. And so my whole adult life has just been kind of clear it out so that I can just be a normal human being and live a normal, happy life. And part of the reason why I was drawn to food solutions as well. So we would do acupuncture some weeks. Other weeks we would just do tapping, where he would I would mimic him. So he would do this, and then he would say things for me to repeat back that had to do with the trauma I was dealing with at that moment.
Very interesting.
It was really helpful.
And so do you have now some daily practice that you do to, to remind yourself of the importance of this, just staying aware? Because I have the feeling that that's actually the biggest challenge as we go, with our busy lives, to actually stay aware of
Yeah.
our feelings in our body and our daily experiences. It's so easy to fall into this roller coaster of events that are just, starting the moment you wake up in the morning, and then you just continue running the treadmill, and then you just don't feel anymore. And I started to realize that this is the case when I stopped working. Like, I finished my PhD, and I decided, all right, I worked for 8 years. I had 4 children. And now with the number 4, I just don't want to work anymore. I just want to take care of my children. I just want to be there 100% of the time for them. And suddenly there was this empty space because I didn't have to go to work. Of course, I had to take care of them. But suddenly I realized nobody is going to plan my life for me.
Yeah.
I had this big awakening, like, I'm the creator of my day. Nobody can tell me, nobody's going to tell me what I have to do. And I had no longer excuses to say, like, but I have to do this and had to do that,
Yeah.
I was like, right, I just have to decide myself what to do. And that was extremely difficult, actually, because during that time I was also high raw, and I experienced a lot of emotions and feelings, and I felt totally lost, raising my 4 children. And it was really a period of my life that was probably the most difficult for me, of not following the treadmill path. Sometimes I feel that it's maybe even easier for people to live that life, that you just follow that line, like those dogs that are running in the race, and there is this fake rabbit that they are pulling in front of them. And I have the feeling that most of the people actually live that kind of life. They are just running after the rabbit all the time, and they never catch him.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so suddenly when you stop that run, you realize how exhausted you are and how lost you are too. So I was like really lost. I really didn't know like which way I should be going. And that was the time also that I started to study all this literature that we shared together. Gabor Mate was really a big eye-opener for me. And actually my husband read his book first, In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts.
Okay.
It actually was him who introduced me to his work.
Oh,
And he
wow.
stopped with The Realm of Hungry Goats, and I just read all his books because I was like, wow, this is like amazing. And
Yeah.
while I'm talking about his work, I would like to share with everybody who is following this discussion that he made this wonderful documentary this year. I don't know if you have seen it. I think I shared it with you. The Wisdom of Trauma. It's called The Wisdom of Trauma, and the first broadcast was in June this year. And actually, I think in 1 or 2 weeks, it's going to be broadcasted again. So for those of you who are interested, I will share in my stories. You have to really sign up for the email notification. And when you do that, you will receive an email with link when it's really available for watching. It's a free documentary. It's 1.5 hours. And it just basically summarizes his lifelong work with trauma and addicted people, and actually people with chronic illnesses. It's amazing. I think it's really worthwhile watching.
I can't wait to see it.
It's amazing. You will love it, really. I think I will probably watch it again. Like, it's a kind of movie that, so somebody's asking, what is it called? It's called The Wisdom of Trauma. And the author of this documentary is Dr. Gabor Mate. And it's a kind of movie that makes you cry, like if you want it or not.
Wow.
Because he really portrays these small children and those early childhood experiences. And I think all of us can relate to some part of that story that he's presenting. So it's very powerful. I definitely recommend watching. Yes, The Wisdom of Trauma, correct.
He has a real interest, like a really unique perspective on life, on just what all of this is, and the choices that we make subconsciously, and how we can become more aware of them, and why we do certain things. And I just really appreciate his perspective. He gets things that a lot of people don't get. His early childhood experiences were so unique. You know,
Yes.
you're familiar with his early years.
Yes, but I think that most of the people here are not, so maybe you can share a little bit
He,
about him.
he's basically a Holocaust survivor. He was a baby during the Holocaust, and his father had been sent to one of the camps. So I think for the first year of his life, his father was not in the home.
And
And his
neither his mother, I believe, that he was actually given to, I believe that he was given to some family to
oh,
take care of him because the mother was so traumatized from what she had to go through in the camp that she was not able to take care of him. So I think that the first year of his life, he just grew, up with somebody. Like it was a family, but they were not his parents, and he felt very abandoned, and that basically went with him his whole life. And he felt always, I remember reading the story, he always felt like he was not significant, and because he was very good in studying, he
yeah.
thought like I can find the significance in helping people, so I will become a medical doctor and I will be very important. And
Yes.
then he became workaholic. He was like workaholic, working long hours just in the hospital, helping all these people. And it took him actually a very long time to realize that it was his way of dealing with his traumatic experiences. It was his coping mechanism.
I think he also was fired from his job at a hospital because of his, I think he had a temper. He had quite a temper. And that's how he ended up working at the addiction treatment center. I guess I guess this was like a step down for him because it was, he had to take what he could get. But this job, the addiction center, is where he got all of
All of
his
his work done,
all
basically.
of his
Yes,
yeah, his
amazing.
information. I remember you would post these posts about addiction. And for me, I've never had any kind of a chemical addiction, or I'd never been a heavy drinker. So that that topic never interested me until you started posting about it.
Hmm.
I was like, this is very interesting how I can relate to some of these
Yes,
that he's saying. And I obsessively watched all of his lectures, and the lectures on addiction were my favorite. And
yes,
I realized it's because we have an addicted society. We
yes.
only,
We are addicted society, but we do not want to even recognize it. We just think it's normal. Well,
yeah,
it's just like eating junk food is normal.
yes, yes,
Being addicted to smartphones, being addicted to alcohol, and people think, oh, I only drink once a week, but
being
it's
addicted and watching the news
yes,
and
absolutely.
being angry.
Coffee, sugar, salt, like you name it, like it's all normal. It's all normal, and people only realize how great they feel once, it's gone.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and then that's exactly the moment when you start to feel all these emotions that you have in you and you just have been suppressing all that time. And that's why I think that when you go raw suddenly, like
Yeah.
all this distraction is taken away and you start to feel, and it can be actually quite horrifying sometimes.
It was awful at moments for me. Yeah, definitely. There's definitely, I can see why people give up on it. I can understand because to become so exposed, to start to feel things that you've been holding down and suppressing can be really scary. And some people are not ready to face those things that they've been suppressing.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
yeah, I can understand it. But I find it exciting. I mean, you seem like the same way. You're a very curious person. I mean, you have like a million degrees.
That's my coping mechanism, Bella. I now know it.
Yes, I don't have as many degrees as you, but knowledge. I find that fulfilling curiosity is a coping mechanism for me too.
Yes,
I'd
it
love to hear
is.
about that from your perspective too, of course. Yes. Like how, yeah, please respond to what I just said because I feel like you can totally relate.
I can relate very much because I shared sometimes, on my Instagram of what kind of background I come from, and I grew up with a mom who was very unstable, depressed, burnout very often, and I never knew what to expect when I come home. So sometimes she would send me away. I would need to go away for days and not knowing when I can return. And actually, I didn't realize all of this and all these memories. Like, I always thought it was all normal what happened to me when I was small. I was also very often in the hospital. I was sick all the time. Like, I had really chronic throat infections. I was always on antibiotics, like one package after another. It was crazy. And when I was small, I had pneumonia. So I was, I think, 1 month old, and I was already separated from my mom. She couldn't stay there with me in the hospital. So I think that I also had a pretty heavy start. My father left when my mom came from the hospital with me. So it all just was, unfavorable environment for me to grow up. And as I was growing up and getting older, and my mom was very unpredictable, I couldn't really rely on her. I, found friends. Sometimes these friends were not like perfectly supportive of me, but luckily I didn't stick with those friends for too long. But I was always very lucky to be surrounded with really wonderful people. And I have the feeling that that's exactly the reason why I, came where I'm today.
Yeah.
Because these friends, they really believed in me. They were supporting me. And when I went for my university exams, like one friend of mine, she would just call me in the morning and tell me, I know you can do this. My parents, my family, nobody would ever show any kind of support, because they just thought, oh yeah, she's doing fine, so there is nothing to worry about. It was normal that I was not problematic child, except of being sick. For the rest, I was just fine. And so as I was going and collecting more degrees, I realized it was my safety zone. I felt comfortable doing this, because yes, I have a good analytic skills. I can learn quite quickly. I enjoy learning new things. Curiosity is really my passion. I just love to explore new subjects. So, I also somehow got lost in it. Just like Gabor Mate explained in his work, like, it's very easy, because if you feel so safe and comfortable doing these things, it can also become your addiction, actually.
Education.
Right?
Totally.
Yeah.
I don't have the same, for me, learning in a school environment is a lot of work for me. So I have found alternative means of education, like the nutrition program, university, and also just consuming books and lectures online, as much like information. I can
Yes.
totally relate to your education addiction. And,
Yes.
and it's funny because the thing about addiction in our society, and the fact that we won't address what it really is, there are totally acceptable and encouraged forms of addiction in our society. Education and an obsession with knowledge acquisition is an example of a totally acceptable addiction. But like
Yes.
I said, I'd like to hear your wisdom on when you realized you were getting, it must have been really, imagine it must have been a weird experience mentally, because, but wait a minute, I'm doing something that's so rewarded in society. How can this be an addiction?
You know what? What was very, very eye-opening for me was, again, Gabor Mate's work, when he actually defined what can be classified as addiction.
Uh,
And he said that addiction is anything that we keep on doing despite of it causing us some problems. You
mhm,
know,
mhm.
like we can be sitting and working until 12 in the night, and then just waking up next day for the sake of doing it again. And we clearly are sleep deprived. We are walking zombies, but we keep on doing it
Mhm.
because it still gives us this sort of gratification, or sort of satisfaction. And I think that that's where I realized, like, wait a minute, I really have to watch what I'm doing. And I really have to, learn to monitor my boundaries and stop before it's too late.
Yeah.
It's very challenging. It's very hard for me up to this day, because with these 4 children, they are continuously pushing, they are
Bet.
continuously trying. And actually, I have the feeling that they help me very much to become aware and to stay, alert, like what's going on. Because when I'm not, then I'm failing on all fronts. And I really hate to not be able to be there for my children, because
Yeah.
I overdid it, because I didn't watch my boundaries, because I pushed too far. I just hate to then not be able to take care of them. So I, learned to be very, very careful with it.
Hmm. So So since that's come up, maybe we should shift a little bit. And
Yes, sure.
because that's bringing up all kinds of questions, and I hope I can articulate some that I didn't think of ahead of time, because you're making me think about, yeah, that must have been really hard to realize if you're still an ambitious person, you didn't give up on acquiring knowledge. But what happened after your last degree? Well, I guess you're in a nutrition program, but I'm curious to know how you made the decision to go into that, knowing what you just described.
I made a decision. So basically, I finished my PhD in 2016.
Okay.
And there was a big gap in between me finishing the PhD and actually now committing to the new education. But of course, in between, you followed me. I studied a lot and I shared a lot, but I did this on my own terms. Nobody was telling me, you have to finish these books by then, you have to write this post by then. I realized that I need to be my own boss.
Yes.
Because when I'm forced to, meet some deadlines, I tend to overdo it.
Yeah.
I really feel like I really need to practice self-love and my own boundaries and really watch them very closely. It's been very difficult, but when I do it correctly, it's very rewarding. And it goes for food, it can be extrapolated to any aspect of my life, my personal life. Because when I start to work and study and do too much, I immediately disconnect from my eating habits too. Because I tend to then believe like, okay, every day I have this green smoothie, I have it for breakfast and most of the time for lunch. Then I have this kind of snack and then dinner. Okay, I don't have to think about food. I'll just prepare this food and then just, jug it down and whatever, just, eat it. And I ate. But the experience in my body is not the same.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still getting that food, but I'm drinking and eating it without the full awareness, because I'm so focused on studying something and it doesn't serve me after all. It just doesn't work. I think that we have to maintain awareness at all time. There is no final destination when you just be mindless and get the results that you are after. It just doesn't exist. I think it's the ultimate goal, to be aware, mindful. Most of the time. I think it's impossible probably for us on this planet to be mindful like 100% of the time, but at least, remind ourselves throughout the day, like just to check in, like, how am I doing?
Yeah.
Is it still right to go this direction? Or maybe is it wise to stop now and do something else?
Yeah, I totally relate to that. When I was in college, my health was definitely not my number one priority, because there's so much pressure you're studying so many subjects at once and dealing with so many projects. And a lot of us have jobs outside of work, outside of school. Not everybody, but I did. I had a job and I had other responsibilities, and it's just balance. Something has to be sacrificed, and a lot of us sacrifice our health and our food choices.
Because health is something that we take for granted, It's just like, oh yeah, we are young, we feel good, and we can just, forget about it and focus on what's important, and that's the status in the society. And how do you get the status? Through education, of course, and to having a good job.
You remind me, when I was in college, I actually ate, it was actually one of the healthiest periods of my life, because I was a vegan, I was a new vegan, and I had very little money. I only had $25 a week to spend on food. And so I found this farmer's market. And it wasn't like, when I say farmer's market in America, I don't know what it's like in the Netherlands. Farmer's markets have become these very trendy, expensive things.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They still are relatively, like well priced, not expensive.
Yeah, the food, and I've only been to France, Italy, and Spain, and the food there, especially in France, the outdoor farmers markets are reasonably priced. I think in America, what we're trying to do is create those types of atmospheres, and so it's definitely like an event. It's not just your foods, and so the prices are pretty high. But there actually was a real farmers market where I lived, where the restaurants would go and shop, and it was super cheap. And so I would only buy vegetables and fruits and maybe some rice and some meat. And so there was a period in college where I was eating a whole food plant-based diet.
That's
And
amazing.
and it really helped. It really made a difference. But then, of course, after that, life happens. It's hard to just to always focus on your health.
But
Totally.
now you talking actually about this, you also naturally go in the way that we initially planned to talk about, and that's how do you make it happen when life happens?
Yes, that's our topic. We need to talk about it because this is the thing that I think is the biggest struggle for people. And it really hurts me to see people giving up on a healthy path. And I'm just like, no, just like stick with it. You can figure this out. It's hard, yes, but it's just hard until it becomes easy. You just have to keep doing it, and then eventually you figure it out. So yes. So you have 4 kids, right? All in
Mhm.
a group of young to teenager?
Yes, the oldest is almost 11 and the youngest is almost 5.
Okay, wow. That's like all of your attention. They need all of your attention.
Yes, they need a lot of attention. Yes.
Wow. And you cook for them 3 times a day or?
I now have this habit. So, they go to school. I don't homeschool them. That's a big difference.
Okay.
So when they go to school, I'll just make sure that I get things done in the morning. So I really like to cook 2 foods, 2 meals at least,
Okay.
because I like that when they come from school, they get something warm. So I typically, prepare some buckwheat millet, brown rice, potatoes. The cooked carbs are always in the fridge. And they love vegetables. They love raw vegetables. They love cooked vegetables like steamed broccoli, cauliflower, carrots, peas. They are not difficult about these things. So I always make sure that I have, the carbohydrates cooked and the vegetables chopped.
When you say
So
carbohydrate, referring to
I mean
rice?
the grains, and potatoes. Like those things are ready in the fridge. But then when it comes to vegetables, I like to prepare it just before they eat it, because I feel that steamed vegetables, when they're heated, they just don't taste as nice. They like to have them crunchy. Oh
So
wait.
wait, so or do you do like a meal? Oh, um, am I still on?
Yes, you are, but I don't know why my battery is saying that it's almost empty.
Okay.
But that's interesting because I believed it was on the charger. It's
Oh,
very weird. Okay, I think I didn't connect it. I'm sorry.
that's okay.
I thought that it was actually plugged in, but yes, I put a cable in the phone, but not in the electricity.
Oh, that's funny.
Mm. Okay. Yes, so I basically make sure that they have their whole food. I really focus on whole food plant based. That's what I do. So they don't like overly complicated recipes, so I like to keep it simple. And I have the feeling that as long as they eat variety of foods, if they don't eat everyday pasta and broccoli, but they really get the variety, then I think they're just doing fine. And some of them love avocados, some of them love nuts, they love the hemp seeds. So, I just don't worry too much about it. In the past, I was pushing it. I was really like, you must eat this, otherwise you will not be getting the nutrients that you need.
Yeah.
But nowadays, I'm really, letting them to decide, because they really are exposed to a lot of healthy foods. I mean, you come to my house and fruit is everywhere. We have 3 fridges and they're stuffed with vegetables full. So, you
Mhm.
know, it's easy for them and it's normal for them. This is just the way it is. So, and oftentimes in the evening, they will just ask for more vegetables and more apples,
Wow.
and they'll just have it. In the past, I was like, no, you shouldn't be eating before you go to sleep. But when they want to eat cucumber, they just eat cucumber at 8 in the evening, and that's fine.
I don't have kids, so I have to be very careful what I say about, food choices in families. But I've met people who say that, oh, my kids won't eat vegetables. They won't eat. No, they won't. They would never eat plant-based. They would never be okay with that. But I know so many parents like you who have just raised their kids with with fruits and
And
vegetables?
you know, the interesting thing is that I was not always vegan. So my first two kids were actually born while I was not vegan.
Okay, what was that?
So for them was a big transition. You know, the youngest two, they were born into the vegan family, so that was like very natural for them. But the first two, that was, yeah, they had to transition. And you
Mhm.
know, I just noticed that actually when we are very harsh on ourselves,
Mhm.
when I'm harsh on myself, I'm also going to transmute that energy to my
Yeah,
children, and I'm just going to be very hard on them, and
yeah.
usually what I get back is a lot of resistance.
You know, I can relate to what you're saying as a piano teacher. Totally get it. Yes, yes. When you,
Because you know it's the same, it's the same, it's been the same experience on my own healthy eating journey.
yeah,
Every time I fell prey for some protocol, pushing myself into something that I didn't enjoy, I would just not stick with it. It
yeah.
just would not work. It would be too hard, it would be too much work, and after a while my willpower would be exhausted, and I would feel like a complete failure. You know, I would just feel like, what's wrong with me? Those people, all those 100,000 followers of that XYZ person are able to do it, and I'm not able to do it. What's wrong with me?
Mhm.
And then over the time, I realized, well, it just doesn't work. You have to really stay connected with your own needs and intuition, and your body's always talking to you. And we are so good at silencing it. We are just so good at it. It's unbelievable.
It's true. So was it hard for your older kids to transition into eating more fruits and vegetables? And how is it now?
So, of course, they had periods when they would just refuse eating more complex meals. Now this is becoming more easy. But I remember the first cream of cauliflower I made, and you know, it was like yucky. This is really horrible. Like, I'm never going to eat this. And now it's their favorite soup, and I
Wow.
and I use it for making pasta Alfredo, you know, with the cauliflower sauce. And Christina, my number two, she's like, I love that sauce. When are you going to make it again? So I
Oh,
think that kids are very adaptable. And I think that the less we push them, the easier the transition. If we just, instead of, you know, forcing them to eat foods that they absolutely hate, like Christina, she hates chickpeas. Like
really?
when I put them, when you know, when she sees them just cooked, she's like, no, I'm not going to eat it. It's not her thing. Matilda loves it. Dominica loves it. Elizabeth loves it. But Christina really, chickpeas is for her is a poison. But when I make bliss balls and I put some chickpeas in the bliss ball, she's like, this was so good. It was amazing. And you know, there are ways to introduce new foods to them so
Yeah.
that their microbiome is actually getting used to it while they don't even realize they are eating it. And then suddenly next time it's okay to mash it with potatoes. It's okay to blend it in the cauliflower soup because the cauliflower is, you know, it's familiar. And then you put a little bit of chickpeas, and just over time, you just change their microbiome, and suddenly it's no problem.
What an interesting method. I like that you said that their microbiome gets used to it. And so little by little, they
Little
start to
by little.
get. That's very well. We're the same way, aren't we? I mean, before raw food, there were certain things I never ate. There were certain veg. I didn't even like salad before I went raw. I was one of those vegans that hated salads.
That's interesting. And now when I look at your feet, it's all over full with salad.
All it
So I think it's very important that people actually allow themselves to make small steps instead of, you know, having big goals and then feeling like it's not working. I think it's just very important. I wanted to ask you, I will need to soon go and put the girls to bed because it's very
is.
late. But I would like to still talk about, you know, the nutrition. Like when you finished the course by Rick and Karin, what was the biggest takeaway message for you that you practice, you know, every day in your life? uh,
That's a
diet
great
wise.
that's a great question because it was a life experience, that program. I didn't expect it to be so profound, but okay, I would say the most significant difference is before the program, I I knew I was really attracted to this raw lifestyle, and I felt really good in it, but I wasn't 100% trusting that I had made a good decision.
Mm-hmm.
I still had a little bit of fear that, oh, what if I really mess up my health doing this? You know, what
Mm-hmm.
if in 10 years I'm still eating like this and I get some kind of disease and I'm like, I shouldn't have done the raw thing. And after doing the raw food program, I had no doubts. I just
Mm-hmm.
feel like 100% confident in the way I
Mm-hmm.
eat. It doesn't even faze me when people say things about it. If I, and nobody's like mean to me or anything, but you know, if people say things like, I don't know, the people in my life are very polite, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of them, maybe when I'm meeting them for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
like, oh man, like she's really making a bad choice here. Like she's, you know,
Mm-hmm.
concerns. Doesn't even phase. I'm 100% certain that I'm eating extremely well for my body.
So basically, the biggest takeaway was your confidence in your choices, right?
Yep. And it was a launching pad to going into the more emotional healing. I don't think I spent so many years worried about making the right food that once I just knew for sure I was choosing the right foods, it's amazing how much opened up inside and how much space opened up where I could actually start focusing on other things that have been neglected for a
Mm-hmm.
long, you know.
That's why I really encourage everybody to invest time in education, even
Mhm.
invest money in education, because it's worth it. It's really worth it. And you know, I actually waited for 2 years to follow the course because I thought, oh, I can't afford it. It's just too much money, and
Yeah.
I better do this and this and this, you know. But at one point, I felt like I can't stop thinking about it. I can't stop thinking about that course. I really feel like I need it. I really feel like I just need to finish it, to have that confidence that you are talking about. And I studied a lot online and I already gained a lot of confidence, but this is like rock solid. It's unbelievable how well designed this education is. It's
Yeah.
anybody who doubts, I really recommend to check it out. This is not promotion for Dina's course, but it's just truly amazing. Seriously, they don't even know we are talking about them here, but it's really
I know it's really funny. We do sound like a commercial.
yes.
But yeah, I really, it was a lot of money for me. And also I wasn't 100% sure I wanted to go back into another education program because I've done a lot of education programs throughout my life.
Mm-hmm.
And, but I felt like this is just too important. My health is too important. It's too fragile. You know, some people, I know people. So my partner, his father is in his 90s and he never takes medication. But when I say that, you probably think of people like us, but he's not like people like us. He's like a typical Texan who, you know, eats like Texans eat. And, but his secret is that he doesn't worry about things. And
Mm-hmm.
he's so healthy. But me, I'm fragile. My health is fragile. I developed high blood pressure at what, 34? Like that's crazy. And so obviously I'm somebody who needs to take it very seriously and get as much information as possible from the
Mm-hmm.
sources I can find, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's worth it. It's worth the time and the
So
money.
I think that we can conclude our discussion with saying that education is very important, because I think that when you feel confident about what you do, then nothing can stop you, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I think that for me personally, if I should summarize some take-home messages, would be definitely education and then boundary management.
Yes.
Just practicing awareness, like how far is healthy to go.
Hmm.
And that can be applied to anything in your life, like diet, work-wise, like anything, being parent,
Hmm.
anything. We just have to always watch our boundaries.
Hmm. Yeah, we totally do. It's very important. Yeah. I know you have to go and take care of your kids, so I'm
But
gonna
it's been amazing. I think that we covered actually much more than I expected that we will.
a lot, yeah.
I think that for those people who just joined now, it's pity that we are now just wrapping up, but you can, of course, watch the video later. We talked about raw food nutrition. We talked about releasing emotional trauma. We talked about how to organize raw food lifestyle while being busy. I
Mhm.
think we really covered a lot, and it was really amazing to finally, connect in real time and talk together. I
Yeah,
really enjoyed it very much.
it's so great. It's so nice talking to you. Thanks for hosting this, and thanks to the people who watched and who will watch replay later on. It's
Hmm.
I love connecting about this topic. You know, this is not my full-time profession. I'm a music teacher primarily.
Hmm.
I've just recently added sound healing to my practice, but I care so much about getting this information out to people. So I appreciate you hosting, and I appreciate everybody joining us and
And
listening.
thank you, Bella. It was
All
really
that
amazing. I really enjoyed it a lot.
really nice.
So I hope that we stay in touch.
Yes, we will.
And until the next time, then thank you very much for making the time to join.
All right. Thanks, Susanna.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye.